how not to make a huge mistake when buying a house when you're PCSing. Yes, okay, so I deal with people moving across the country every single day. Now, whether it's military PCSing or it's just someone who's fed up with California and moving to another state, it's something that over the last 2 years, both myself and my team, we've seen it nonstop. I mean, we have actually in our forms now, it used to be like back in the day, you just assumed if someone lived in California, they were probably gonna buy a house in California. Now we're always like, okay, what state do you wanna buy in? Because so many people are relocating. And with the military, you guys have to relocate. So I wanna tell you about some of the stuff to watch out for, and just to be super cognizant of, you know, it's stuff I've seen over the years. And we don't want you to spend a bunch of money on a house that you get to and you're like, oh my God, this is horrible, what have I done? Okay, so I'm gonna give you some tips and tricks. First of all, just because there's a website that says PCS Excellence, PCS Specialist, PCS Pros, whatever they're calling themselves, it doesn't necessarily mean that. Right? We've talked about before about how you'll see lenders where it says, you know, and I don't want to accidentally say a real name, so I'm just going to make up some, I think, but I'm sure they exist. We love military loans, best military loans, best veteran loans. Does that mean they're actually the best? No, it just means they bought that domain. I could literally go on and buy a domain right now that is like best PCS loans for VA. Seriously, GoDaddy.com, you can do it, okay? It doesn't actually mean anything. And I was talking to one of my friends who does a ton of VA loans as well this morning, and we were talking about, you know, how can we make the whole PCS process of buying a house easier, smoother, you know, because we like to share ideas and see how we can help you guys. And he was telling me about this group, and it's actually like they do a decent amount of business, but he was telling me about how he went through some of the reviews, and he looked up the names of the people who wrote the reviews. The people that were writing the reviews saying, oh, this realtor's so great, was another person in the group that was another realtor. Okay, so they were like pretending like they were clients that had such a good experience when it was just another realtor saying, I mean, it was just bullshit, for lack of a better term. I need to stop cussing. I'm gonna stop cussing in 2022. Okay, anyways, but yeah, it was just BS. So with reviews, you guys need to take them with a grain of salt. You need to look at the names on what they are. Like, I feel like Google reviews are pretty accurate. You know, Yelp is really tough. Like, even like Yelp, I've had so many clients, like legitimate clients, right? It never shows their reviews. And I'm like, because they don't Yelp enough. So, you know, Yelp, Google reviews, great. Facebook reviews, I don't know how I feel about them, you know? Is it real? Is it not? You know, it doesn't hurt to look up the names, but just because someone's saying PCS were the best doesn't mean they are, okay? You need to independently research. Just like I said about anything that's like veterans something, right? Does that mean they're the best at VA loans? No, it just means they bought the domain name. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, I really do not like the concept of buying a house without seeing it. Now, if you guys are overseas, I can see why you might do that. It's very expensive to fly, you know, overseas to the United States to look at a house. If it's a couple states over, like you can get an airline ticket for most places for like $80 to $100. And I have to tell you guys, I strongly think that you should, or your spouse should, or someone should, uncle, father, grandmother, somebody that you trust in your core goes and looks at that house for you with the real estate agent. And the reason I say that is because I'll talk to clients and they'll be like, oh my God, Jen, I've seen the perfect house. It's so beautiful online. And this is just every day. And I look at the pictures and I'm like, yeah, wow, that looks really good. Like, tell me what it's like when you see it. And they go to the house and they call me later like, oh my God, seriously. Because just as like, think about Instagram and all that, how you can like add hair and like shave your face and like drop 20 pounds. They can do that with house pictures now too. And that's what most realtors are. Like, I gotta tell you, they brighten the room. They can make a dungeon look like it's filled with light. So you gotta understand that marketing is marketing. And the pictures are never a true representation of the house. I always get excited when I see terrible pictures because I'm like, ooh, it might actually be better than that. Okay, but you know, if every picture's light and bright, could be a filter. Okay, so if you're like, gosh, we can't afford to fly out there, we don't have anyone we trust, there's no one on base at the news station that you can trust? Okay, if not still, then here's the minimum 2 things you have to do, okay? Number 1, your realtor needs to walk through that house with their iPhone or their Android, whatever they have. They need to do a video tour of the house, okay? Do it at 5 o'clock, see what the light's really like. I would have my realtor, if I was buying in a place that I wasn't at, I would have them do the walkthrough tour. I would want, show me the ceiling. Are there any leaks? Show me the corners. Show me everything, right? Because that's not glamorous. It's hard to make anything look good through a video tour on a phone. So if you still like it after that, it's probably love, probably. Okay, the next thing I would do, Google Earth. Google Earth is such a benefit, like so amazing as a consumer. So we had a client who's like, okay, Jen, my realtor, I found this ranch. I love it. I love this ranch. He's been looking for a long time. And we're like, oh my God, that's great. He's like, it's 2 hours away, but my realtor, he's such a good guy. He said he's going to take me. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Let's just go on Google Earth real quick. Because whenever anyone's going to drive like further than 40 minutes, I'm like, let's go on Google. I just love Google Earth. It's amazing. So we go on Google Earth and I'm like, dude, it's across the street from an airport. And there's a trash, reuse station, like a trash recycling plant, like across the street from that. Do you want to live by those? He's like, oh my God, no. And then he goes on Google Earth and he's like, wait, there's also a cow farm right next door. And I'm like, are you downwind from that? Anyways, here's the thing. They would have driven 2 hours, okay, to go see this place. And in Google Earth, within 4 minutes, we all went, woo, are you sure? And he went, yeah, not what I'm looking for. He wanted a peaceful ranch, can you imagine a peaceful ranch under those circumstances? No. So we're going to have the realtor do a walkthrough. We're going to do Google Earth. I'm super sound sensitive, so I wouldn't necessarily give the realtor the heads up, but I'd be like, hey, can you just like film? Like, I just want to feel what it feels like to get out of the car door and walk up to the house. Okay, the reason you want to do that is because you want to know if there's a dog next door that barks like this all day long. Okay, that may not bother you, but you could be like me. That's a deal killer for me. If I hear all day long and it's not my horrible dog, I'm out, okay? I would also have them just do, what does the street look like? Yeah, I would have them drive down a couple blocks, give me the whole neighborhood. I want to feel like I'm walking around the neighborhood. That is the bare minimum. If the real estate agent knows that you can't fly out there and is unwilling to do that, break up. You need to break up. And if they go, oh, well, it's such a fast market, we just don't have the time. Guys, it takes 10 minutes. They have the time, okay? And look, I'm probably gonna get some real estate comments where they're like, dear Jennifer, we hate you even more than ever. You've made more work. I don't care. It's a big investment. And I was like, if you were gonna buy a $700 dress, this is for the ladies, and you couldn't return it, no returns, $700 dress, no returns, would you buy it without trying it on? Now, a lot of you are probably like me, because when I did that example in my head, I was like, God, I'd never spend that on a dress. I did spend close to that on my wedding dress. And here's the thing, I tried it on, okay? So a house is a much bigger purchase than that. And so a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm sure the pictures are fine, it'll be fine. Guys, do not trust anything you see in pictures. Instagram, I rest my case. Instagram, filters. No. Okay, so what did we cover? We covered just because someone says they specialize in PCS doesn't mean they do. It could just be a domain name. Fake reviews, watch out for those. We also covered, please fly out to the house, check out the neighborhood, make it sure it's everything you want. Do not trust the pictures. If you can't do that, you're gonna have the realtor do a tour of everything. You're gonna listen for that sound. Google Earth is your best friend. Okay, what else? Where else do I see people make mistakes? Usually the biggest mistake I see is they get to the house and they've never seen it and they hate it. And we've only had one of those this year, thank goodness. And we had said, please go see the house. He got to the house and he's like, this is terrible. We just got approved for base housing. We're gonna do base housing, but he lost his earnest money, which was about $3,000. Because that's the thing, when you guys get into contract on a house, you're putting down some sort of money in many cases, and it's not refundable if you get there and hate it. If you close a loan and you get to the house and you hate it, you're hosed. Your only way out is to sell the house, guys, okay? Now, Something else to consider is if you're buying a house sight unseen, one way to some way protect yourself beyond doing all of this, okay, is seeing if the property would cash flow, okay? Meaning that let's say your payment's gonna be $1,500, if the rents around there are $1,800, worst case, you show up, it's a disaster, your neighbors are terrible, you can rent it out for more than you owe. Okay, that can be a really good idea. Also, if you're trying to get into contract before you have your permanent orders, that's another reason to make sure it cash flows, because we all know that until you're actually there, your orders could change. Even with your final orders, they could still change. So, I was talking to someone who was like, well, once they pick up your goods, that's usually when you're pretty safe that you're going there 100%. So knowing if the property will cash flow is another good idea. The last thing and the most important thing is you guys need to make sure you're working with a lender that actually understands how this works, because because I'll get the calls, I always get the emergency calls where someone's like, oh my God, I can't get the loan, this guy said I could. If you're moving from California to Texas, you're about to have a BAH cut like no other, right? If you're going from Texas to California, your BAH is about to increase, excuse me. So if you're working with a lender who's looking at your current BAH and not what your future BAH is gonna be, they're gonna qualify you wrong. So you really wanna make sure you're working with a lender that knows what they're doing. So those are the biggest mistakes I see. I'm gonna be covering some more stuff about PCSing this week. I'm just doing military week. It's the end of the year, and that's what I love everything, but it's PCSing time. What are we gonna talk about? It'll be fun. So questions as comments, as always, leave them. I am licensed in 48 states. Yes, so I am happy to get you fully pre-approved, fully underwritten, a loan commitment, so that when you're writing those offers, you can do it with confidence. I'm very competitive on rates and fees. Feel free to check out my reviews on Google. They're real. They're real. We don't play any BS games. Anyways, guys, I appreciate you as always. Any questions, comments, please leave them.